The alarm screamed through the bridge of the horizon's edge, cutting through the quiet hum of deep space travel. Captain Jake Morrison sat up straight in his command chair, his coffee forgotten on the armrest. The red lights bathed everything in an angry glow. "Report," Jake said, his voice calm despite the chaos erupting around him. Lieutenant Amy Chen's fingers flew across her console. Her dark eyes reflected the data streaming across her screens. "Distress signal, Captain. Coming from Sector 7. It's close, maybe 20 minutes at full speed." Jake leaned forward. "Can you tell what kind of ship?" Amy shook her head, her ponytail swinging. "The signal is weak. But Captain, there's weapons fire. Someone is shooting at them." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what this meant. They were in contested space near the borders of the Velcaran Empire. Any ship in trouble here was caught in something political, something dangerous. Earth's standing orders were clear. Avoid involvement in alien conflicts. Jake stared at the view screen showing the starfield ahead. Somewhere out there, people were dying. Maybe they were good people, maybe they weren't. But they were calling for help. "Lieutenant Cole," Jake said, looking at his communications officer. "Can you identify the ship?" Danny Cole adjusted his earpiece, concentrating on the signal. His young face was tight with worry. "Sir, I'm picking up Velcaran Imperial codes. High-priority codes. This isn't just any ship." Amy turned in her chair. "Captain, our orders are to stay out of Velcaran business." "I know what our orders are," Jake said quietly. He closed his eyes for a moment, thinking. His crew was watching him, waiting. Whatever he decided in the next few seconds would affect all of them. He opened his eyes. "Set course for the distress signal. Full speed." Amy didn't hesitate. Her hands moved across her controls. "Course set. Arrival in 18 minutes. Jake tapped his communicator. "Dr. Hayes, prepare medical bay for possible casualties. Unknown species, probably Velcaran." "Understood, Captain," came the reply. Kevin Hayes sounded ready like he always did. The horizon's edge jumped to full speed, and Jake felt the slight vibration through the deck. Around him, his crew worked efficiently. They trusted him, and that trust was both a comfort and a weight on his shoulders. "Captain," Amy said after a few minutes, "I'm reading 3 attacker ships. They're smaller, but they're armed. And they're not backing off. What about the distressed ship? Life signs detected but fading. The ship is badly damaged. They don't have much time." Jake nodded. "Battle stations. Shields up. Charge weapons but don't fire unless fired upon." The crew moved with practiced precision. Jake watched them and felt proud. They were explorers, not warriors, but they trained for situations like this anyway. He just hoped they wouldn't need those skills today. 10 minutes, Amy announced. Danny suddenly looked up from his station. "Captain, I've translated part of the distress message. They're saying they're carrying members of the royal family." The bridge erupted in whispers. Jake held up his hand for silence. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. The message specifically mentions Princess Lyria and Prince Kale." Jake felt his stomach tighten. This wasn't just any rescue anymore. This was the Velcaran royal family. Getting involved could start a war or create an alliance. There was no way to know which. 5 minutes, Amy said. "The attackers have spotted us. They're changing formation." Jake gripped the armrests of his chair. "Shields to maximum. Amy, plot an intercept course between the attackers and the royal ship. Make it clear we're protecting them." "That might be seen as an act of war, Captain," Danny warned. "So is watching royalty die when we could have helped." Jake replied, "I'd rather explain my actions to Admiral Grant than live with doing nothing." The view screen shifted to show the battle ahead. The royal transport was a beautiful ship, even damaged. It had elegant lines that spoke of wealth and power. But now it was bleeding atmosphere and spinning slowly. Around it, 3 smaller ships circled like sharks, firing whenever they had a clear shot. 30 seconds. Amy counted down. Jake stood up. "Open a channel to the attackers." "All frequencies. Channel open, sir." Jake took a breath. "Attention, attacking vessels. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Horizon's Edge. You are firing on a ship under our protection. Cease your attack immediately or face consequences." There was a long pause. Then weapons fire erupted toward them. "They're shooting at us," Danny yelled. "Evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered. "Return fire. Target their weapons systems only. I want them disabled, not destroyed." Amy's hands danced across her controls. The Horizon's Edge twisted and turned through space, dodging the incoming fire. Their own weapons fired back, precise and controlled. Human targeting systems were different from most alien technology. They were faster, more adaptive. The first attacker ship took a hit to its weapons array. It went dark and began to drift. "One down," Amy reported. "Two more to go. Keep them away from the royal transport." The battle lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. The Horizon's Edge wasn't a warship, but it was well defended and had a crew that knew how to think creatively. Jake called out orders and his crew executed them perfectly. They used tactics the attackers didn't expect, movements that confused their targeting computers. Finally, the last two attacker ships broke off and jumped away to hyperspace. "They're gone," Amy said, breathing hard. "Damage report," Jake demanded. "Shields at 40%. Minor hull damage. No casualties." "Good, Danny, hail the royal transport." "No response, sir. Their communications are down." Jake made a decision. "Amy, bring us alongside. Prepare boarding teams. Dr. Hayes, get to the airlock. We're going to get those people out." The next hour was frantic. Jake led a team onto the damaged royal transport. The air inside was thin and cold. Emergency lights flickered. They found the royal family in a reinforced safe room near the center of the ship. Princess Lyria was unconscious, bleeding from a head wound. Her elegant clothes were torn and stained. Beside her, a young boy clutched her hand. His eyes were wide with terror. This had to be Prince Kale. "It's okay," Jake said softly, kneeling beside the boy. "We're here to help. Can you walk?" The boy stared at him. Jake realized the prince probably didn't understand English. He held out his hand instead, making his intentions clear through gestures. Kale hesitated, then took Jake's hand. "Good," Jake said. "Let's get your sister to safety." They carried Princess Lyria through the damaged ship. Her breathing was shallow. Jake kept one hand on her neck, checking her pulse. It was weak but steady. Behind them, the royal transport groaned. It was dying. They made it back to the Horizon's Edge just as the transport's power core began to fail. Jake's team sealed the airlock and rushed the princess to medical bay. Dr. Hayes took one look at her and immediately started working. "Will she live?" Kale asked in broken English, tears streaming down his face. Kevin looked up, his hands never stopping their work. "I'm going to do everything I can." Jake put his hand on the young prince's shoulder. "Dr. Hayes is the best. Your sister is in good hands." Kale looked up at Jake with those terrified eyes. Then suddenly the boy wrapped his arms around Jake's waist and held on tight. Jake stood there, awkward at first, then slowly put his arms around the crying child. "You're safe now," Jake said quietly. "I promise." In the medical bay, Kevin worked through the night. Princess Lyria's biology was similar enough to human that his equipment worked, but different enough to make everything complicated. He used experimental treatments, adapting as he went. Amy brought him coffee and supplies. Danny helped translate Velcaran medical texts they found in the ship's database. Jake stayed with Prince Kale. The boy refused to leave his sister's side. They sat together in the medical bay, watching Kevin work. Jake didn't know what to say, so he didn't say anything. Sometimes presence was enough. As dawn approached on Earth time, Princess Lyria's vital signs stabilized. Kevin stepped back from the medical bed, exhausted but smiling. "She's going to make it," he announced. Kale burst into fresh tears, but these were tears of relief. He grabbed Jake's hand and squeezed it hard. Jake felt the tension drain from his shoulders. They had done it. They had saved the Velcaran royal family. What came next he couldn't predict. But right now, in this moment, two people were alive who would have been dead. That was enough. On the bridge, Amy was monitoring communications. Suddenly, her console lit up with priority messages. She read them quickly, her eyes getting wider. "Captain," she called, "you need to see this. The Velcaran Empire knows what we did, and they're responding." Jake looked down at Prince Kale, who had finally fallen asleep holding his sister's hand. Whatever response was coming, whatever political storm they had just sailed into, Jake knew he would make the same choice again. Some things were more important than orders. The message came 3 hours after Princess Lyria stabilized. Jake was in his quarters trying to sleep but failing. His mind kept replaying the battle, wondering if he had made the right choice. When his communicator beeped, he answered immediately. "Captain, you need to come to the bridge right now," Amy said. Her voice was strange, excited, and nervous at the same time. Jake pulled on his uniform jacket and hurried down the corridor. The ship felt different somehow. The crew members he passed looked at him with new expressions. Respect mixed with something else. Fear, maybe. When he reached the bridge, everyone stood up. That never happened. Jake frowned. "What's going on?" Danny pointed at the main view screen. "Sir, we have an incoming transmission." From Queen Seraphine herself. Jake's mouth went dry. The Queen. The actual queen of the entire Velkaran Empire wanted to talk to him. "Are you sure it's really her?" "We verified the codes 3 times, Amy said. It's her." Jake straightened his jacket and ran a hand through his hair. "Okay, put her through." The view screen flickered and changed. A woman appeared, and Jake forgot to breathe for a moment. Queen Seraphine was stunning and terrifying all at once. She had the same elegant features as her daughter, but her eyes held centuries of wisdom and power. Her clothing was simple but somehow screamed royalty. She sat on what looked like a throne, surrounded by advisors who watched Jake through the screen. "Captain Jake Morrison," the Queen said. Her voice was like music and thunder together. "I am Seraphine, Queen of the Velkaran Empire." Jake bowed his head, not sure of the proper protocol. "Your Majesty, I'm honored. You saved my children," Seraphine continued. Her voice cracked slightly on the word children. "You risked your ship, your crew, your career to pull them from death." "Why?" Jake thought about lying, about giving some diplomatic answer, but something in the Queen's eyes told him she would know. "Because it was the right thing to do, Your Majesty. They needed help." Seraphine stared at him through the screen for a long moment. "No consideration for politics? For orders? For the consequences?" "I considered them," Jake admitted. "I just decided they didn't matter more than 2 lives." The Queen's expression softened. Behind her, Jake could hear her advisors whispering urgently. She held up one hand and they went silent immediately. "Captain Morrison, my daughter tells me your doctor saved her life, that your crew treated them with kindness, that a young prince who has never trusted strangers now follows you like a shadow." Jake felt his face heat up. "We did what anyone would do." "No," Seraphine said firmly. "Not anyone. Most would have followed their orders and left my children to die. You chose differently. Therefore, I make this declaration before my empire and yours. Captain Jake Morrison and the crew of the Horizon's Edge are now under the protection of the royal house. You are ours and we are yours. This bond cannot be broken." The bridge went completely silent. Jake stared at the screen, not understanding. "Your Majesty, I don't know what that means." For the first time, the Queen smiled. It was a sad smile. "You will learn, Captain. You will learn." The transmission ended. Jake stood there, confused and worried. Around him, his crew looked equally lost. "What just happened?" Danny asked. Before anyone could answer, another transmission came through. This time it was from Earth. Admiral Lisa Grant appeared on screen and she did not look happy. "Captain Morrison, what have you done?" she asked without preamble. Jake swallowed hard. "I rescued the Velkaran royals, Admiral. I sent you my report. I read your report. Do you have any idea what the Queen's declaration means?" "No, ma'am." "I was hoping you could tell me." Lisa rubbed her temples. "According to our xenoanthropology team, you've just been adopted into the Velkaran royal family. Symbolically, at least. You and your crew are now considered part of their house. It's an incredible honor. It's also a massive political complication." Jake felt the floor tilt under his feet. "Adopted? I just saved 2 people." "You saved the right 2 people at the right time," Lisa said. "The Velkaran have specific cultural practices around life debts and family bonds. By declaring you as ours, the Queen has extended royal protection to you. It means you can't be touched by Velkaran law. It means you have certain rights and privileges. It also means you have obligations. What kind of obligations? We're still figuring that out. Just sit tight. Don't accept any more transmissions from the Velkaran without clearing it through diplomatic channels first. We need to understand what we're dealing with." The transmission ended. Jake slumped into his command chair. This was way beyond anything he had expected. He had just wanted to help. Now he was part of an alien royal family. "Captain," Amy said carefully, "there's something else. The Velkaran have been broadcasting the Queen's declaration across all their networks. You're famous now. Throughout their entire empire." Jake closed his eyes. "Perfect. Over the next few days, everything changed. The Horizon's Edge received supplies and gifts from Velkaran ships that appeared out of nowhere. Beautiful fabrics, exotic foods, technology that Earth scientists would love to study. Every package came with messages of gratitude and respect." Jake tried to focus on his normal duties, but it was impossible. His crew looked at him differently now. They were proud but also nervous about what this meant for their futures. Princess Lyria woke up on the 3rd day. Jake was called to medical bay immediately. When he walked in, she was sitting up in bed. Her head was bandaged, but her eyes were clear and sharp. Prince Kale sat beside her, holding her hand. "You must be Captain Morrison," she said in perfect English. Her voice was soft but strong. Jake bowed awkwardly. "Your Highness, I'm glad to see you're recovering. My brother tells me you carried me to safety, that you promised him I would live. Dr. Hayes did the hard work. I just helped transport you." Lyria studied him carefully. "My mother has declared you part of our family. Do you understand what this means?" "Honestly? No. Everyone keeps telling me it's important, but nobody explains it clearly." The princess laughed, then winced and touched her head. "It means you belong to us now, Captain. In Velcarin culture, family bonds are sacred. By saving our lives, you created a debt that cannot be repaid. So instead of debt, my mother made you family. You have the rights and protections of royal blood, though not the actual bloodline itself." "And the obligations?" Jake asked. "You must answer if we call. You must protect the family if needed. You must represent us with honor." She paused. "It sounds restrictive, but it's meant as the highest honor. We don't give this lightly." Jake sat down in a chair near the bed. "I didn't do this for honor or politics. I did it because you needed help." "I know," Lyria said softly. "That's why my mother chose this response. You acted with pure intentions. That's rare, Captain, especially in our world." Over the following days, Jake spent time talking with Princess Lyria. She was curious about Earth, about human culture, about how humans thought. She was particularly interested in human philosophy. "We Velcarin believe heavily in duty," she explained one afternoon. "We're born into roles and we fulfill them. But humans seem to believe in choice, that you can decide your own path." "We believe in both," Jake said. "Duty and choice. Sometimes they conflict. Like when I decided to rescue you, my duty said follow orders. My choice said help people who needed it. And choice won? In that moment, yes." Lyria looked thoughtful. "That's fascinating. In Velcarin society, duty would have won. You would have followed orders even if it meant watching us die. That seems cold. It's stable. It's predictable. But maybe," she said slowly, "it's also limiting." Prince Kale, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up. "Jake is the bravest person I've ever met. He ran into danger to save us. That's not duty. That's heart." Jake felt his face flush. The boy had barely left his side since the rescue. Kale followed him everywhere, asking endless questions about Earth, about space exploration, about Jake's past missions. It was exhausting and touching at the same time. "Your brother has adopted you too," Lyria said with amusement. "He's decided you're his hero. I'm nobody's hero. I'm just a captain who made a choice. You're humble. That's good. Humility is rare among those with power." Lyria leaned back against her pillows. "Captain Morrison, my mother will likely summon you to the homeworld soon. When she does, please come. There's much we need to discuss." "About what?" "About the future. About what happens when humans in Velcarin become family. About the forces that tried to kill us and will try again." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You think they'll attack again?" "I know they will. The people who ambushed us won't stop just because we survived. If anything, our survival makes us bigger targets." She looked directly at him. "You're part of this now, Captain, whether you wanted to be or not." That night, Jake stood in the observation deck staring out at the stars. "Amy found him there. Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too much thinking," Jake admitted. "I saved 2 lives and somehow ended up in the middle of alien politics." "You did the right thing." "Did I?" "Our orders were clear. I disobeyed them. Now my whole crew is caught up in something we don't understand." Amy stood beside him, looking out at space. "The crew doesn't blame you. We're proud of what we did. Yeah, it's complicated now. But those 2 people are alive. That counts for something." Jake nodded slowly. "The princess thinks there will be more attacks. That whoever tried to kill them." The Velcarin homeworld appeared on the view screen like a jewel floating in space. Azura Prime was beautiful in a way that made Jake's chest ache. 3 moons orbited the planet, and rings of ice particles caught the light of the system's blue star. The planet itself glowed with cities that looked like crystals growing from the surface. "Wow," Danny whispered from his station. "I've seen pictures, but they don't do it justice." Jake had to agree. Earth was beautiful, but this was something else entirely. This was a civilization that had thousands of years to perfect their world. "Captain, we're being hailed by planetary defense," Amy reported. "They're sending us approach vectors and clearance codes." "Follow their instructions exactly," Jake ordered. I don't want any mistakes. The horizon's edge descended through layers of defense systems that could have vaporized them in seconds. But the clearance codes worked perfectly. They were guided toward the capital city, a sprawling metropolis that blended nature and technology in ways humans had never imagined. The royal palace sat at the city's heart, built into and around a massive mountain. It gleamed in the sunlight, part crystal, part living plant matter, part something Jake couldn't identify. It was ancient and modern at the same time. We're cleared to land in the royal district, Amy said quietly. Captain, that's unprecedented. Most ambassadors have to land in the diplomatic quarter and take transport. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Everything about this situation reminded him how far out of his depth he was. He was just a ship captain. He explored uncharted space and made maps. He wasn't prepared for royal courts and political intrigue. Landing bay is ahead, Amy continued. It's huge. The bay could have held 20 ships the size of the horizon's edge. Crystal pillars supported a ceiling that seemed to glow with its own light. Valkyrian workers moved around, preparing for their arrival. As the ship touched down, Jake saw guards in ceremonial armor forming 2 lines from the ship to a massive archway. Well, Jake said, standing up from his command chair, I guess we're here. He had decided to bring a small team, Amy, Kevin, and Danny. They had all changed into their formal Earth military uniforms. Jake hoped they looked presentable. He had no idea what Valkyrian court standards were. They walked down the ramp together. The moment Jake's foot touched the landing bay floor, every Valkyrian present bowed deeply. It was unnerving. A tall Valkyrian male approached them. He wore robes that shifted colors as he moved. Captain Morrison, I am Chancellor Vex. I speak for the Queen in matters of protocol. Welcome to Azura Prime. Jake bowed his head. Thank you, Chancellor. We're honored to be here. The Queen has prepared quarters for you in the family wing of the palace. This is a great honor. You will stay where the royal family themselves reside. Amy made a small noise beside Jake. He knew what she was thinking. The family wing, not the guest quarters, not the diplomatic suites. They were being treated as actual family. Vex led them through corridors that took Jake's breath away. Everything was art. The walls, the floors, even the air seemed to shimmer with beauty. They passed Valkyrian nobles who stopped and stared at the humans walking through their palace. They're not used to seeing humans here, Vex explained. In fact, you're the first humans to ever walk these halls. The Queen has broken many traditions to bring you here. Is that going to cause problems? Jake asked. Vex smiled slightly. Everything causes problems in a royal court, Captain. The question is whether the problems are worth it. The Queen believes you are. Their quarters were stunning. Each member of Jake's team had their own room, and there was a common area larger than Jake's entire house back on Earth. Windows looked out over the capital city, and Jake could see the 3 moons rising in the evening sky. Rest tonight, Vex said. Tomorrow you will have an audience with Queen Seraphine. I suggest you prepare yourselves. A royal audience is not a simple meeting. After Vex left, Jake's team gathered in the common area. They were all trying not to look overwhelmed. This is insane, Danny said, flopping onto a couch that adjusted itself to his body shape. We're in the royal palace. The actual royal palace. Stay focused, Jake told them. We represent Earth here. We need to be respectful and careful. One wrong move could create an interstellar incident. No pressure, Kevin muttered. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He stood by the window watching the alien city below. Lights moved through the streets in patterns he didn't understand. Music drifted up from somewhere, strange and beautiful. A knock on his door made him turn. He opened it to find Prince Kale standing there in sleeping clothes, looking small and nervous. Jake, can't you sleep either? Jake smiled. No, buddy. Too much on my mind. What about you? I wanted to make sure you were really here. That you didn't leave. Jake knelt down to the boy's level. I'm not going anywhere. Your mother invited us, remember? People say you're going to cause trouble. That humans don't belong in the palace. Do you believe that? Kale shook his head firmly. You saved us. You're family now. That's what Mother said. Then that's what matters, Jake said gently. Don't listen to gossip. Listen to your heart. Kale threw his arms around Jake's neck. I'm glad you're here. After Jake returned the boy to his rooms, he found Princess Lyria waiting in the hallway. She had recovered fully now, though she still had a small scar on her temple where she'd been injured. He trusts you completely, she said. That's rare for him. Kale is usually suspicious of everyone. He's a good kid. He's a prince who will one day help rule an empire. But yes, underneath the title, he's a good kid. Lyria gestured down the hallway. Walk with me? They walked through quiet corridors past sleeping chambers and ancient artwork. Guards stood at intervals, but they bowed to Lyria and ignored Jake completely, as if a human walking beside their princess was perfectly normal. Tomorrow will be difficult, Lyria said. My mother's court is full of people who don't want you here. They see humans as primitive, as outsiders. Your presence challenges everything they believe about our superiority. Should I be worried? Yes and no. My mother protects you so no one will attack you directly, but they'll test you. They'll try to embarrass you or trick you into breaking protocol. They want you to fail so they can tell my mother that adopting humans into the family was a mistake. Jake felt his jaw tighten. I won't let you down. I know you won't, but Jake, be prepared. Royal courts are more dangerous than any battle. Words are weapons here, and everyone is fighting for position and power. Why are you warning me? Lyria stopped walking and looked at him. Because you saved my life. Because you showed me that duty and honor don't have to mean following blindly. Because I believe my mother is right about you. And because I want you to succeed. The next morning, Jake and his team were dressed in their finest uniforms. Vex arrived to escort them to the throne room. As they walked, Jake noticed more and more Velkaran nobles joining the procession. They whispered behind their hands, staring at the humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. The throne room doors were massive, carved from a single piece of crystal. When they opened, Jake saw a chamber so large it could have held 1,000 people, and it nearly did. The room was packed with Velkaran nobility, all dressed in their finest clothes, all waiting to see the humans who had been declared family by their queen. At the far end of the room sat Queen Seraphine on a throne that seemed to grow from the floor itself. She looked even more impressive in person than she had on the view screen. Power radiated from her like heat from a star. Captain Jake Morrison of Earth, Vex announced in a voice that carried through the entire chamber. Hero of the royal house, protector of the blood, adopted son of the empire. The titles made Jake want to disappear. He walked forward with his team behind him. Every eye in the room tracked their movement. When they reached the base of the throne platform, Jake bowed deeply. His team did the same. Captain Morrison, Queen Seraphine said, and the room went silent. You have answered our summons. For this, we are grateful. Your Majesty, the honor is ours, Jake replied, hoping his voice didn't shake. You have met our children. You have seen what your actions preserved, but you have not yet understood the full meaning of what we have declared. You are ours, Captain. You and your crew. This is not a title to be taken lightly. I understand, Your Majesty. Do you? Seraphine stood up from her throne and descended the steps. The entire court gasped. Apparently the queen didn't usually do this. She walked up to Jake and placed her hands on his shoulders. You gave us back our children when they were lost. There is no treasure in the empire that can repay such a debt, so instead we give you ourselves. You are family now with all that means. She touched her forehead to Jake's in a gesture he recognized from before. It was a family greeting, intimate and sacred. When she pulled back, there were tears in her ancient eyes. You are ours, she repeated, and we are yours. Let no one question this bond. The court erupted in whispers. Some nobles looked shocked. Others looked angry. But no one dared speak against their queen. Seraphine returned to her throne. Captain Morrison has questions. We see them in his eyes. Ask, child. What troubles you? Jake took a breath. This was it. The moment to either build a bridge or burn one. Your Majesty, I'm grateful for this honor, but I don't understand. The morning came too quickly. Jake woke to find formal clothing laid out for him. Traditional Velkaran garments adapted for a human body. They were beautiful but uncomfortable. He dressed slowly, trying to calm his racing heart. When he emerged from his chambers, he found Commander Tell waiting for him. The Velkaran warrior was tall and heavily muscled, with scars crossing his dark skin. He wore armor that looked both ceremonial and functional. Captain Morrison, Tell said with barely concealed disdain, I am your protection detail. The Queen insists that you must be guarded at all times while in the palace. I didn't ask for a bodyguard. You didn't need to ask. You are royal family now, and family must be protected. Whether I agree with this or not is irrelevant. Jake could hear the resentment in Tell's voice. You think I don't deserve to be here? I think you are a human who got lucky once. Luck runs out. Fair enough, Jake said. Let's hope my luck holds a bit longer. The first trial was scheduled for mid-morning in the Hall of Meditation, a chamber in the palace where disputes had been settled for thousands of years. When Jake entered with his team and Tal following, he found the room packed with nobles and court officials. At the center sat two Velcarin families positioned on opposite sides of a ceremonial circle. Lord Caney stood before the assembly. The first trial is the trial of compassion. Captain Morrison must mediate a dispute between House Voran and House Telak. These families have feuded for 4 generations over territory rights. Many mediators have tried to settle this conflict. All have failed. If Captain Morrison can find a solution that both families accept, he passes the first trial. Jake felt his stomach sink. He was being asked to solve a problem that had stumped Velcarin mediators for generations. A problem he knew nothing about. He approached the two families. The head of House Voran was an elderly woman with cold eyes. The head of House Telak was a middle-aged man who glared at her with open hatred. "Tell me about the dispute," Jake said simply. For the next hour, he listened. The conflict was complicated, involving land boundaries, ancient agreements, and generations of insults and counter-insults. The territory in question was a valley that produced rare crystals used in Velcarin technology. Both families claimed it based on different historical documents. Jake asked questions. He didn't pretend to understand Velcarin law or history. Instead, he asked about the valley itself, about the crystals, about why this particular place mattered so much. Slowly, a picture emerged. Neither family actually used the valley much. The crystals were valuable, but both families had other sources of income. They were fighting because their ancestors had fought, because backing down meant losing face, because the conflict itself had become part of their identity. "May I see the valley?" Jake asked. This request surprised everyone. Lord Caney frowned. "The trial is here, Captain. Not in some distant valley. How can I mediate without seeing what they're fighting over?" After some debate, they agreed. An hour later, Jake stood in the disputed valley with both family heads, their retinues, and what felt like half the royal court. The valley was beautiful, with crystal formations jutting from the ground like frozen lightning. Jake walked through the valley, examining everything. Amy, who had insisted on coming, whispered to him, "Captain, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking this whole conflict is stupid," Jake whispered back. "But I can't just tell them that." He noticed something interesting. The crystal formations were concentrated in 2 areas, one at each end of the valley. The center was mostly empty. "Here's my proposal," Jake announced. "Divide the valley into 3 sections. House Voran gets the northern third where their crystals are concentrated. House Telak gets the southern third where their crystals are concentrated. The middle third becomes neutral territory, administered by a council with representatives from both families." "Impossible," Lady Voran said immediately. "We own the entire valley. Do you?" Jake asked. "According to whose document? You each have papers saying you own it all. Those documents contradict each other, so either one of you is lying, or both documents are legitimate and the original boundaries were unclear. Either way, you can't both own everything." Lord Telek bristled. "You insult our honor. I'm stating facts. You've been fighting over this valley for generations. Your children have grown up hating each other. People have died in disputes over this land. And for what? Crystals you don't really need? Pride that cost you everything?" Jake pointed at the 2 family heads. "Your ancestors started this fight. That wasn't your choice. But continuing it is your choice. You can keep fighting until one family destroys the other, or you can be the generation that finally makes peace." "The middle section has no crystals," Lady Voran pointed out. "What value does it hold?" "That's the point. It has no economic value. So neither of you can claim you're losing more than the other. But it has symbolic value. You turn it into something new. A park, a memorial, a place where both families can meet without hostility. You transform a battlefield into a bridge." The 2 family heads looked at each other for the first time without hatred. They looked uncertain, which Jake decided was progress. "The neutral council would have equal representation?" Lord Telek asked. "Equal and rotating. Neither family controls it. You govern it together or not at all." Lady Voran was quiet for a long moment. "If we agree to this, our feud ends completely. No more conflicts, no more insults, no more treating each other as enemies." "That would be the idea, yes. And if we refuse your proposal?" Jake shrugged. "Then you keep fighting. Maybe for 4 more generations. Maybe forever. That's your choice to make, not mine." The 2 families withdrew to discuss privately. Jake sat on a rock formation, trying not to show how nervous he was. Tyle approached him. That was clever, the commander said grudgingly, using the worthless center as neutral ground. It seemed logical. They don't really want the whole valley. They want to win. This way, nobody wins and nobody loses. That is a very human way of thinking. After an hour, both families returned. Lady Voren spoke first. We accept your proposal, Captain Morrison. House Voren will take the northern third. Lord Telak nodded stiffly. House Telak accepts as well. The feud ends today. The assembled nobles erupted in surprised chatter. Jake felt tension drain from his shoulders. He had done it. The first trial was complete. That evening, there was a celebration in the palace. Jake tried to enjoy it, but his mind was already worrying about the next trial. Princess Lyria found him on a balcony away from the party. You did well today, she said. Many people didn't expect you to succeed. The hard part was getting them to see past their pride. Once they realized the fight was hurting them more than helping, the solution was obvious. Obvious to you. Not to 4 generations of Velkaran mediators. Lyria leaned on the balcony railing. You see things differently than we do. That's your strength. It might also be my weakness. The next trial could require thinking like a Velkaran, not like a human. Then you'll adapt. You're good at that. Before Jake could respond, an alarm sounded through the palace. Tal appeared instantly, his hand on his weapon. Get away from the balcony. Now. Jake and Lyria moved inside just as something exploded in the garden below. The blast shook the building. Screams echoed through the halls. Stay here, Tyle commanded. I'll investigate, but Jake was already moving. His military training kicked in. He ran toward the explosion, not away from it. He found chaos in the garden. A ceremonial fountain had been destroyed and several Velkaran were injured. One of them was a young girl, maybe 10 years old, trapped under debris. Jake didn't think. He ran forward and started pulling rocks and broken crystal away. The girl was crying, her leg crushed. Behind him he heard Tale shouting, but he ignored it. It's okay, Jake told the girl in broken Velkaran. I've got you. He lifted a heavy piece of debris, feeling his muscles strain. The girl pulled her leg free, screaming in pain. Jake lifted her and carried her away from the unstable rubble, just as more of it collapsed. Medical personnel arrived and took the girl. Jake stood there, breathing hard, his hands bloody from the sharp crystal. Tell grabbed his arm roughly. That was incredibly stupid. There could have been a second device. You could have been killed. There was a child trapped. And you're a royal guest. Your life is worth more than a servant's child. Jake pulled his arm free. No, it's not. No life is worth more than another. Tale stared at him. Around them, other Velkaran stared too. They had heard what he said. That girl is my daughter. Tale said quietly. Jake blinked. What? Her name is Vera. She's my daughter. You saved her life. The hard warrior's expression cracked. Tears filled his eyes. He grabbed Jake in a crushing embrace. Thank you. Thank you. Later, after the chaos settled, they learned the explosion was deliberate. Someone had planted a device during the celebration. Security didn't know who yet, but they were investigating. Jake sat in his quarters, cleaned up but still shaking from adrenaline. There was a knock on his door. He opened it to find Tyle. I came to apologize, the commander said. I judged you harshly. I thought you were just a lucky human playing at being royal. But you risked your life for my daughter without hesitation. That is true honor. I did what anyone would do. No. You did what a good person would do. There's a difference. Tyle. The final trial was held in the Chamber of Wisdom, the oldest room in the palace. The walls were carved with the names of every monarch who had ever ruled the Velkaran Empire. Jake stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by hundreds of observers. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about whether humans deserved respect in the eyes of an ancient civilization. Lord Caney looked almost pleased as he addressed the crowd. The final trial is the trial of wisdom. This is not a test of action, but of thought. Captain Morrison will be asked the great question, the philosophical puzzle that has challenged our greatest minds for centuries. Princess Lyria, standing near the front of the crowd, looked worried. Jake tried to give her a reassuring smile, but his mouth was too dry. Caney turned to Jake. Captain Morrison, here is your question. What is more important, duty to one's people or freedom of individual choice? Can these two concepts coexist, or must one always sacrifice one for the other? Our philosophers have debated this for 1,000 years. You have until sunset to provide your answer. Jake felt his heart racing. This wasn't like the other trials where he could rely on instinct or compassion. This was asking him to solve a fundamental philosophical problem. He was a ship captain, not a philosopher. I can think anywhere, Jake asked. Of course, you have the freedom of the palace and grounds. Return here at sunset with your answer. Jake left the chamber with his team following. They found a quiet garden where they could talk. This is impossible, Danny said. Philosophers have worked on this question for centuries. How are you supposed to solve it in a few hours? Maybe I'm not supposed to solve it, Jake said slowly. Maybe I'm just supposed to give my perspective on it. Amy sat down on a bench. Okay, let's think about this. Duty versus freedom. In the military, we understand duty. We follow orders, we serve something bigger than ourselves. But we also value freedom. That's what we fight for, Kevin added. From a medical perspective, I have a duty to heal, but I also believe in patient choice. Sometimes those conflict, like when someone refuses treatment that could save them. Jake walked through the garden thinking. His entire life had been about balancing duty and freedom. As a captain, he had duties to his crew, to Earth, to his mission. But he also believed in individual choice, in the right to decide one's own path. He thought about the moment he decided to rescue Princess Lyria and Prince Kale. His duty said follow orders and stay out of alien conflicts. His choice said save lives. In that moment, his choice had won. But his duty hadn't disappeared. It had just been redefined. I think I have it, Jake said suddenly. Already? Danny looked skeptical. The question assumes duty and freedom are opposites. But what if they're not? What if they're two sides of the same thing? He spent the rest of the day refining his thoughts. Tail found him and offered to help, which surprised Jake. I've thought about this question myself, Tail admitted. As a warrior, I have duty to protect, but I also choose who I protect and why. When I protect you now, is it duty or choice? Both, Jake said. You're assigned to protect me, but you also choose to do it well because you believe in it. The duty gave you the opportunity, but your choice gives it meaning. As the sun began to set, Jake returned to the Chamber of Wisdom. The room was even more crowded now. Word had spread throughout the city, and people wanted to hear the humans' answer to the great question. Queen Seraphine sat on a simple chair at the front. Beside her were Princess Lyria and Prince Kale. The young prince gave Jake an encouraging thumbs up, a gesture he'd learned from humans. Lord Caney stood. The sun sets, Captain Morrison. What is your answer to the great question? Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward. I believe the question itself is flawed. It assumes duty and freedom are opposed to each other, that choosing one means rejecting the other. But I don't think that's true. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Duty without choice is slavery. If you're forced to serve, if you have no option to refuse, then your duty means nothing. It's just obedience to power, but choice without any sense of duty is selfishness. If you only ever do what you want without considering others, without feeling responsibility to something beyond yourself, then your freedom becomes destructive. Jake looked around the room. True duty is chosen. I'm a captain. That's a duty. But I chose to become a captain. Every day I choose to fulfill that duty. It's not forced on me, and my freedom is shaped by my duties. I'm free to make choices, but those choices have consequences. My duty to my crew means I don't abandon them. My duty to do what's right means I don't have the freedom to do wrong without guilt. He turned to Queen Seraphine. When I rescued your children, I had a duty to follow Earth's orders. I also had the freedom to make my own choice. I chose to fulfill what I saw as my higher duty, the duty to help people in danger. That choice had consequences. I broke official orders. But I also saved 2 lives and created this connection between our peoples. Was it duty or choice? It was both. Jake addressed the entire chamber now. You Velkarin have structured your society around duty. That's given you stability and strength. But sometimes I think you've forgotten that duty is most powerful when it's chosen. And we humans value freedom sometimes too much. We forget that freedom without responsibility is just chaos. He took a step forward. The answer to the great question is that duty and freedom don't oppose each other. They need each other. Duty gives freedom meaning and direction. Freedom gives duty authenticity and power. They're not enemies. They're partners. You can't have one without the other. Not really. Not if you want both to mean something. The chamber was completely silent. Jake's heart pounded. He had no idea if his answer was right or if he'd just failed spectacularly in front of an entire civilization. Then Queen Seraphine stood up. She began to clap slowly. One by one, others joined her. Princess Lyria was smiling with tears in her eyes. Even some of the nobles who had opposed Jake looked thoughtful. Lord Caney approached Jake. For the first time, the old noble's expression wasn't hostile. "I designed these trials to expose you as unworthy, Captain Morrison. I wanted to prove that humans don't belong in our royal family. But you've surprised me at every turn." Caney bowed his head. "Your answer to the great question is not the answer our philosophers would give. But it is an answer that makes sense. You've shown us a new way to think about old problems. For that, I acknowledge that I was wrong about you." Jake was stunned. "Thank you, Lord Kane. The trials are complete. You have passed all three. I withdraw my objections to your presence in the royal house." That night, there was a massive celebration throughout the capital. Jake had proven himself according to Velcarin tradition. He was truly family now, not just by royal decree but by demonstrated worth. But Amy found Jake away from the party, looking troubled. "Captain, we need to talk. I've been working with Velcarin intelligence and we've found something." "What?" "The explosions, the attempts to embarrass you, the attacks. They're all connected. There's a conspiracy within the noble houses. They're trying to eliminate the royal family and take power." Jake felt cold. "How certain are you?" "Very. We've intercepted communications. They were hoping you'd fail the trial so they could argue that the Queen's judgment was flawed. With you gone, they could move against her directly. Who's leading this conspiracy? We don't know yet. But it's someone high up, someone close to the throne. And Jake, there's more. They're planning something during the coronation ceremony." "What coronation ceremony?" Amy looked grim. "Princess Lyria is going to be formally named heir to the throne in 3 days. It's a huge ceremony with the entire court present. Intelligence believes the conspirators plan to strike then. They'll try to kill the entire royal family in one attack." Jake's mind raced. "Have you told the Queen?" "She knows. She's increasing security, but she doesn't want to cancel the ceremony. It would show weakness. She's essentially daring the conspirators to make their move so we can catch them." "That's insane. She's using herself as bait. She's using her family as bait, including you." Jake found Queen Seraphine in her private chambers. She was alone, staring out at the city. "Your Majesty, I heard about the coronation plan. You can't put your family at risk like this." Seraphine didn't turn around. "I have no choice, Jake. If I show fear, if I change our traditions because of threats, then the conspirators win even without attacking. They make me look weak. Better to look weak than to be dead. For a human, perhaps. For a Velcarin queen, death is preferable to cowardice." She finally turned to face him. "Don't worry. We have a plan, and you're part of it." Over the next 3 days, Jake worked with Tail, Amy, and Velcarin security to prepare for the coronation. They studied the ceremony layout, identified potential attack points, and prepared countermeasures. It was exhausting work, made more difficult by not knowing exactly who the enemy was. Princess Lyria seemed calm despite the danger. "I've lived with threats my entire life," she told Jake. "This is just another day. You could die. So could you. But you're still here, still helping. That's what family does, right?" Prince Kale was less calm. The boy stayed close to Jake, clearly frightened. "What if something bad happens?" "Then I'll protect you," Jake promised. Just like before. 2 weeks after the failed assassination attempt, the rescheduled coronation ceremony took place. This time security was overwhelming. No one was taking any chances. The Grand Hall had been completely rebuilt, more beautiful than before. It was a statement that the Velcarin Empire could not be broken by violence or treachery. Jake stood beside Queen Seraphine as Princess Lyria walked down the long aisle toward the throne. She wore traditional robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. Her head was held high, her steps confident. She looked every bit the future queen she was about to become. The ceremony was ancient and full of ritual. Jake didn't understand half of it, but he could feel the weight of history in every word spoken. This was how the Velcarin had passed power for thousands of years, and now he was part of it. When it came time for Lyria to accept the crown of the heir, she knelt before her mother. Queen Seraphine placed the delicate crystal circlet on her daughter's head. "Rise, Princess Lyria, heir to the Velcarin Empire, keeper of the future, guardian of all people." Lyria rose and turned to face the assembled crowd. Thousands of Velcarin nobles and citizens watched. The moment was broadcast throughout the Empire and back to Earth. 2 civilizations were watching. "I accept this crown and this responsibility," Lyria said, her voice carrying through the hall. "I promise to lead with wisdom and compassion. I promise to honor tradition while embracing necessary change. And I promise to build bridges between all peoples, whether Velcarin or not." She gestured to Jake. "As my first act as heir, I name Captain Jake Morrison of Earth as my champion. He will advise me, speak with my authority when